It's finally time to take a look at the Lycan in World of Tanks, and that is exactly what this Monster Hunter vehicle is within World of Tanks, and it is a real demon, to be honest with you, or at least werewolf, I guess. But it has a 6-shot autoloader with 145 damage per shot, I believe, which leaves it around 750, maybe even more, maybe even like 800 damage it can do in a full clip, which is mad when you think that this is a tier 7 vehicle. And so yeah, you can really kick out a ton of damage, and you should definitely not underestimate this tier 7 light tank from the American line very easily, because this vehicle, although it may be quite small, it might be not the fastest light tank that you're ever going to see in the game, it can definitely punish a lot of people that maybe don't really recognise it as a real threat. And this game is going to showcase that not only will the actual gun of this thing be really punishing to those of people who decide to mess with it, but also the spotting potential that this vehicle will offer you as well. So we're going to see everything that you really need to know about this vehicle, and of course you can pick it up as part of a sale that Wargaming are doing on all Monster Hunter tanks, so you can kind of see whether or not this actually suits your playstyle, and actually whether you can get it for free as well as part of the Monster Hunter operation that is currently going on within World of Tanks. And of course, if you complete a series of kind of points, basically you can get this vehicle for free, and you just have to unlock it. But remember, there are other Monster Hunter tanks that we will be reviewing that you can also get for free in their tier 8 tanks, so be aware that it may be some other vehicles that you might want more than maybe this one in general. But yeah, let me know if you have actually played the Lycan, because this is one of my favourites of all of the Monster Hunter tanks, and that includes things like the Creature, which is just utterly ridiculous. But yeah, this game, back to the gameplay, I guess. And what we've got here is a really interesting gameplay played by myself, of course, as every single gameplay is in this. Accidentally crashing into a dragon, I'm sorry if that's you. But the core premise of the Lycan is that you'll kind of pop up every now and again, do a bit of damage and then leave, and then pop up again and use the concealment that this vehicle can offer you. It doesn't have the most amazing concealment, it isn't an ELC even 90 or a Vanguard or whatever you want to call it, but it definitely offers you concealment that, especially if you put on camo and also advanced optics, you'll do really well in this vehicle. But the key thing is that you don't want to be spotted for very long, because although it is fairly small, it's quite tall, and you can end up getting creamed by a lot of people within the game. So just beware that sometimes it, although maybe small, is not necessarily that great in those sorts of scenarios. So you want to keep on the move at all times if you are playing this vehicle and you're trying to get your marks of excellence. That sounds harder than it is on some maps. If you're playing something like Himmelsdorf, I'm just sorry, the Lycan is probably not going to be the tank for you, but it can definitely offer you something else when playing the game if you do get on a map like Westfield, and that's hopefully what we're showcasing here. So within this game so far, what we've done is played pretty passively. I've not really done any reckless behaviour. The Lycan is not really a super reckless tank. It used to be back in the day, but you do get punished a lot harder now, with every single tank seeming to have more alpha damage, and just generally the spotting and everything that happens now is a little bit different to when it was originally in the game, and there's a lot better vision range on most tanks in the game now, so you do have to be a little bit aware of that. Now we're starting to get punished by the T23E3 on the enemy team that you could have picked up for free like last month, I believe it is. So that was like a monthly reward or some sort of earn challenge that you could have done. But overall, I believe that Lycan is probably the better of the two vehicles, and it kind of plays like a medium. Like, it has the speed of a light tank, but it kind of feels a little bit clunky at times. But the turning speed on this thing's really nice, and you can see here this is what happens when you do get the gun singing and you're just continually ploughing rounds into people like this Indian Panzer, who definitely regretted trying to YOLO my teammate, and thankfully we come away with some extra damage. And now you can see the Indian Panzer obviously very triggered that he was getting hit in the side after making a very bold play in the open, now trying to make another really bold play out in the open, and we place 2 rounds into him successfully, leaving him as a 2-shot now for us if we can manage to do that. So we're waiting patiently. We're not going to kind of poke. I know that there's an ISU somewhere on the other side of the building, so I'm not going to poke around that corner in case he is just somehow sat there waiting for me to kind of get hit, basically. But we keep lighting him up and hopefully get some spotting damage, and it does start to roll in as we're getting now spotting damage on the Inferno and also the ISU, so hopefully that can continue, and it does. And yes, we picked up 2,200 spotting damage within this game already, and now it is just the fateful Indian Panzer that we farmed earlier left in the game. So at this point, just got to play it pretty safe. Good camo on this tank, so we can just put 1 shell into him and pull back so he can't get hit on us and finish us off. But a really, really good game for the Lycan, to be honest. It might not be the highest of one kind of stat, I guess, in damage and assistance, but combined it was a really, really good showcase of the vehicle and what you can expect from a vehicle like this. So yeah, don't definitely play it as like a YOLO tank, but play it more as a kind of true light tank, being a support vehicle, and you'll do really, really well with this thing should you decide to choose it. Now, what about if this vehicle is not in the ideal scenario and maybe you're on the losing team? Can you still actually carry the game, and can you come away with victory whilst also feeling satisfied about the fact that you played that game? Well, the Lycan is actually one of those that it's definitely very, very satisfying, even on those games where maybe the team that you get aren't particularly great, or maybe it seems like the game's over too quickly. The Lycan's kind of fun because it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you, whether that happens, because of the vehicle and just in general, it kind of plays much like an aggressive kind of medium tank with amazing view range and tiny. So you've got kind of all aspects. The handling of this thing as well, so it turns super nice, it's really controllable, and also the actual dispersion on the move is fantastic, which means that you're able to hit on the move with this thing quite a lot. So you always see Lycans just YOLOing other light tanks or medium tanks, just auto-aiming people, and it usually ends up working in the end. But what can you do if you do decide to have a vehicle like this? We do actually manage to hit the LTG there, which I was surprised about, even though it didn't actually pen, because, yes, Soviet light tanks. But yeah, I really do enjoy this vehicle, and on a map like this, it's probably not the best map for the Lycan, because you've got to cover quite a bit of ground that maybe is not ideal, especially when you are in this boxy thing. But when you're coming up against things like the LTG, who decides he's just going to go, then we can kind of use the turning speed, amazing speed at that, and we can follow him around, finish him off. We do take 1 hit in return, but it doesn't really matter at this point because we should be absolutely fine. So yes, already picked up a decent chunk of damage, and even in these losing games you can pick up that damage, and I guess it's spoiler alert, we do lose this game, but you can be really like kind of you can have the longevity to actually survive the game till the end with this thing, because it actually gets a really decent amount of hit points comparatively to some of the other tier 7 light tanks. And that's like, well, if you were to compare it to the original AMX Chaffee, it had nearly 50% more hit points over that vehicle. So it was definitely a very strong tank. It was probably a little bit too strong when it was first released, a little bit overpowered, as with most premium tanks when they first get released. And then a few years later, it's still very strong in the right hands, but it's nowhere near as good as it used to be, and I guess that's what the Lycan's all about. I mean, if you want a really, really solid light tank, then this is definitely one of them. But would I say it's better than the Dragon, which you can pick up? I don't know, but you'll have to kind of stay tuned for the Dragon video, which will be coming tomorrow. We're kind of just pushing out all of these new tanks, all of the Monster Hunter tanks, so you can make the right choice with them, and hopefully we'll have some good gameplays in all of them, so we can kind of showcase what they're all about, and what was going to suit you better as a player on World of Tanks console. Of course, we've seen the new hideous Monster Hunter tanks, the ones that just look absolutely absurd. The one that is the spider, I can't remember what it's called, but Yeah, I don't quite know what Wargaming were thinking with that one, but I guess we'll have to wait and see as to what that vehicle is actually like in-game, and I will be reviewing that at some point soon. So yeah, stay tuned for all of those reviews to see if you should actually buy them in the game. But in this game, obviously the problem I find in some light tank games is that you are going to end up in scenarios like this, where it seems like no matter what you do, you're going to again end up getting farmed, you're going to end up getting taken out really easily, and it's kind of damage limitation. Now, we could win this game, but it's unfortunate that pretty much all of their tanks are over this side, which means if I want to escape, I've got to do it now, and that is exactly what I'm doing. There's argument for trying to stay and help this M10 or the Revelarize, but to be honest with you, I'm a light tank that can't really pen anything. I didn't have a heat round loaded, so I'm not going to be able to deal with the Patriot because the penetration on the standard rounds is not the best for the Lycan, which is why you see a lot of Lycans firing premium rounds. So yeah, that's kind of one weakness of the vehicle. We're trying to get a shot into the Barask, which doesn't actually happen or doesn't eventualize, and then we're going to try and get this Patriot out of the game at the same time. Now, there's a Sturmpanzer on our team that's pushed up to try and help with us, but he gets quickly taken out. Now it's starting to look into the realms of it's a definite defeat, and now we've got to damage limitate and get as much damage as possible. But that's very difficult when you're in a tank that basically doesn't have any armour, and it's not particularly the fastest to get up to top speed. Don't get me wrong, when you are at top speed it's not bad and you can definitely make it work, but yeah, where as soon as you start kind of going right down to zero and you are as slow as possible, then you get taken out super quickly, because yeah, you just never get up to top speed very quickly. So that is in general this vehicle. And I guess at this point it's just trying to run away, but it's going to be fruitless and we're going to end up getting taken out because there's no way we're getting over the hill, especially in the swampy terrain. I try and move over to the right as much as I possibly can to avoid getting hit on the exit. We do the exact same here. We just try and be a nightmare to actually hit. Unfortunately, he does tag us. No point going up the hill because the J Panther or the Revelarize will just hit me. I was hoping I'd get a few shots into the J Panther, and now the HMH is coming around the corner. We'll pre-aim to hopefully track him. Maybe we'll get some more damage, but he just comes right round, and it doesn't really matter. Even if we did try and get the tracks, it didn't happen, and so yeah, it ended up being a defeat. But it showcases, you know, this tank isn't perfect. There are definitely a few things that are really annoying about it, and you do have that penetration, and I feel like for a new player, if you're a brand new player to the game, then this tank probably isn't for you. So I wouldn't recommend it as a new player, but if you are someone that's played for a few years or a year or so, and you kind of know the spotting mechanics, then this is what a vehicle can do in the right hand. So yes, thank you very much for watching. Overall opinion, it's a good performer, really solid light tank, and I hope you did enjoy. Don't forget, if you want to check out the new upcoming Monster Hunter tanks, then stay tuned on the channel. And if you want to have a look at some other gameplay and tank reviews on this channel, then they are also on screen right now. I hope you join me there, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.